The Great Desert of Garat. An ancient kingdom ruled over this land long ago, until it was torn apart by strife and internecine war. The last king of Garat swore allegiance to the Romani Empire. A land doomed to bear the burden of war for all time. 7 years ago, an imperial official, the Lord Governor of Khiva, overthrew the king and declared a rebellion against the empire's rule. And now, our turn has come. We have come to Garat to end this, once and for all. Good morning, Your Highness. I'm with Air Force Intelligence, attached to Admiral Dowd's staff. By his order, I'll be covering the basics of warship classes before we begin our flight to Khiva. If you'll follow me to the CIC, please. With the decimation of our capital, we advance to Khiva for leverage, to force a delicate peace. To get there intact, Your Highness, you must understand the tools at hand. I've scrapped together some old documents from storage for you. Let's take a look at them. Since we're aboard one already, let's begin with our battle cruisers, like the Sevastopol. Battle cruisers have shaped national pride and world politics for decades now, thanks to their enormous manufacturing cost and their incredibly deadly armaments. Battle cruisers are our flying citadels, the great bearers of our banner and our battering ram to break through the enemy's walls. Carrying enough fuel to supply most of our task force, the Sevastopol's value cannot be overstated, Your Highness. Losing it would be akin to losing you. In fleet actions, she anchors the line, absorbing punishment with her thick armor plating, while her main battery armaments dish out firepower of biblical proportions. She carries a huge slew of weaponry, from heavy anti-capital artillery to shatter armored hulls, a rear and forward vertical launch silo for missiles, and a point defense grid that breaks up all but the largest missile volleys like waves against a seawall. The Sevastopol and ships like it can defeat entire enemy strike groups all on their own, but please use her as a last resort, because we only have one and we can't expect to get another. Her greatest weakness is her focus on defeating enemy capital ships, meaning smaller aircraft can slip into blind angles and hurt her where she can't reply quickly. This brings us to our air superiority ships, like the Lightning. Air superiority ships are our fastest ships by a landslide, like scalpels in a sledgehammer's world. Take the Lightning, for example, one of our most common hulls, where new officers are often posted after being sworn in. The Lightning wins battles through speed, maneuvering, and initiative, shredding exposed systems, chasing down scouts, and punishing capital ships that overextend. Lightnings are used for recon, intercepts, raids, and pursuit kills, like a knife fighter dueling someone wielding a greatsword. Their modular design allows them to be fitted with explosive reactive armor, decent armament, chaff and flare launchers, or even the Zenith anti-ship missile. She's so fast that she can often dodge missiles, rockets, or even artillery strikes with ease. And she's been known to black out her pilots with extreme evasive maneuvers, making computerized navigation and targeting essential. Unfortunately, she is thin-skinned, so fast-tracking, medium-caliber guns like those found on light cruisers can eat her alive if she lingers. Light cruisers, like our Negev, are the fleet's balance fist, the smallest hull that carries a complete combat package to defeat almost any kind of threat. She brings medium-caliber guns to swat fast movers and hammer capital ships alike, plus dedicated point defense cannons to screen against missiles, a robust sensor grid for scouting and targeting, and missiles of her own to defeat larger capital ships. In a raid, she's self-sufficient, fast enough to keep enemies guessing, enough firepower to win against most threats, and enough eyes to avoid what she can't. Place our Negevs where the picture is thin, where we might not have a lot of information. When the flight fluxes, she's the ship that adapts the quickest. To maintain their speed, light cruisers like the Negev often forgo thicker armor belts, so be wary of heavy artillery guns that can easily punch through her defenses, which you'll find on battle cruisers or heavy cruisers. With only a modest armor belt, the Negev won't trade punches with superior foes for very long. Heavy cruisers are our big gun's backbone, pairing heavy firepower with slightly better engines and a higher thrust-to-weight ratio when compared with battle cruisers. The Nomad, for instance, mounts robust point defenses, respectable sensor suites, heavy artillery batteries, and both tactical and strategic missile armament for shaping the approach. As the name implies, Nomads also carry decent-sized fuel reserves, enough to feed a task force and to keep the fleet in the air for long periods of time. The Nomad brings the heat against larger enemy threats, breaking anchors and finishing off heavy combatants. In a pinch, you can even use the Nomad as a minor command ship, leading the charge against an enemy stronghold and refilling her escorts with her huge fuel reserves. However, she's large, somewhat sluggish, and sports a thinner armor belt than our battle cruisers, making her an easy, high-value target for enemy long-range missile strikes. Some newer hulls exist to skip the gun duel entirely. The Yars is one such specialist. Like our best sharpshooters, she fights not by being there, but instead by firing standoff salvos of missiles, either conventional or nuclear tipped at your command, against distant congregations, fixed defenses, or ships too tough to knife fight. Especially useful when paired with good reconnaissance and solid timing, allowing you to shape the battle before it even begins. Keep the Yars well behind the screen, fire to break morale, open gaps, or finish crippled ships racing for the harbor. If the enemy strike force is loaded with capital ships, a well-timed volley can mean the difference between victory and defeat when we get close enough for guns. In direct combat, however, she's nearly helpless, especially while unguarded. A Yars can die quite quickly, even to fixed-wing aircraft a tiny fraction of her size. Like our missile carriers, our aircraft carriers are also a relatively new concept, introduced just decades ago. The Longbow is one such example of a mobile airbase, serving as the fleet's eyes and ears at extreme range, as well as a first strike against hostile formations of any size and composition. Currently, the Romani Air Force fields 2 carrier-based fighters, the subsonic LA-29, an older second-generation turbojet fighter, useful for scouting, and the modern T-7 aerospace superiority fighter, a cutting-edge third-generation fighter, capable of flying above the sound barrier for hours on end, and fielding advanced air-to-air missiles to defeat enemy fighters or even incoming cruise missiles. All aircraft can carry bombs to deal with larger ships, and rocket pods that trade punch for velocity to hit enemy ships even while they're airborne. With the Longbow, the fleet gains an extended reach and the ability to defeat enemies without ever exposing the location of your larger aircraft. Keep her inside the defensive screen, cycle cap to swat raids, and pad strike packages with scouting and first strikes before air superiority ships arrive to finish the job. However, aircraft carriers themselves are little more than massive investments that depend entirely on their air wing. If caught while landed or bled of aircraft, an aircraft carrier is just bulk steel waiting to be blown into smithereens. That's all I have for you, Your Highness. Admiral Dowd asks one thing. Use each tool for what it does best, and remember, every strength hides a weakness. That is why proper deployment strategy will be vital in our campaign against the Gathering. We'll push from city to city all the way to Khiva, and force our adversaries to talk peace or suffer the same fate as what they brought to our home. Thank you for your attention, and we'll be prepared for takeoff whenever you wish to give the order. Good luck, Your Highness.